Before we begin, since this is a BBC-owned property, I feel the need to point out that the news arm of the BBC has a continuing issue with transphobic leanings in its news coverage. You can find in a pinned comment below various videos from both myself and other YouTubers covering this issue. And while I understand that the Doctor Who creative team is not responsible for this, I will continue to point this out for as long as it remains a consistent issue. Thank you. Gone, but not forgotten. Well, I think I'm overdue to revisit another Doctor Who list. This time, I'm going to revisit the best one-time Doctor Who villains of the modern era. Because honestly, trying to do it to include classic, it brings in most of classic. Because, you know, you had your Daleks, your Cybermen, and the Master, but most other things, they were one and dones, and I am too far behind on trying to catch up on classic. I am working on that. You know what? One of these days, these lists are going to become much more comprehensive, but for right now, still restricting it to the modern era. And we are taking a look at villains who appeared only in one story. Now, to be clear, I do count two-parters as a single story, but as long as we understand that, moving forward, these are who I think are the 10 best one-time villains. So let's start at number 10 and work our way up. Number 10, Zelin, from the Jodie Whittaker era episode, Can You Hear Me? Now, I am somewhat a defender of this episode. It's not quite as well liked as I would appreciate it to be. Not as well liked as I like it. Anyway, I love this episode a lot. And I like actually both the villains in this, but I really like Zelin. The delivery of the lines, he is just so smug.
Almost clever, but not quite clever enough.
But in a real creepy way, because when you get really smug villains, it's very easy to have them just be punchable. But you feel like if I try and punch you for being smug, I feel like I'm going to get dissolved out of reality. He projects that smugness comes from legitimate power. And there's just so many little moments where he just feels in such control, and the malevolence that comes from him in so many of the moments that he has in this. From the moment when this mother puts his kid to bed and says, there is no such thing as the bogeyman, and she leaves, and there's Zelin just standing there.
That's not true.
Or just the way he feigns humbleness when the Doctor suggests that for him to be what he claims, he'd have to be some kind of otherworldly, almost infinitely powerful being. And he just goes,
I blush.
The sense of strength coming from him is so good. It is, I think, not a completely invalid criticism to say that he is, and his partner in crime, they're kind of defeated a little bit too easily. I addressed that when I most recently talked about the episode as a whole. I don't disagree with it, but I do think that the episode did allocate time to where it was a little bit more important than that. But that's the reason he is as low as he is, despite the fact that I do love him. Number 9, The Foretold, otherwise known as the Mummy on the Orient Express. This thing, first of all, fantastic look. Such a classic monster look, like just updated enough to have that little extra air of like being a little bit more, like looking a little stickier, a little gooier, but also being incredibly evocative of a very classic looking movie horror monster. And the gimmick around this thing, that the only one who can see it is the one who's going to die. And the timer, the fact that the timer is on screen, counting down until it reaches them and they die. It is such a simple and yet deeply unsettling style of threat. Everything about this thing just makes you uncomfortable. The way that it operates, the way that it looks, it's a really terrific monster. Now, some might argue that the true villain of this episode is Gus, which is the computer that has kind of set this whole thing up. I would say that functionally the Foretold is the obstacle, so I'm going to count it as the villain in this case regardless. It's not higher because it doesn't have a lot of particular personality or whatnot. We do learn a little bit about it at the very end, which I think in a way that is quite nifty, but it doesn't have that force of personality to boost it up higher, but I do love it. Number 8, the Vashta Narada, from the two-parter in Series 4, Silence in the Library and Forest of the Dead. The shadows that eat people. Not every shadow, but any shadow. And once they latch on, they don't let go. And you are nothing but food to them. Darkness, something you cannot avoid forever, but is the thing that will kill you. And the subtlety of the having two shadows and knowing that you're gonna die and just trying to figure out a way to stall it however you can, but once they've got you, that's it. It shares a similar simplicity to something like the Weeping Angels, which is just completely built off that notion of, I swear that statue was in a different position before. Whereas this just feeds off of, well, as the Doctor puts it, that irrational fear of the dark. Except that it's not irrational. There is something in the dark. That's a really good, simple thing to just press on for a monster or a villain. That sensation you get that you tell yourself, oh, there's nothing to worry about there. What if there is? Perfectly used in the story in which they appeared. Absolutely excellent. Number 7, House. A sentient trash ball with no physical being that you can relate to at all. It's a green glow and a voice. But when that voice is Michael Sheen, going full deep-throated, just wicked, sadistic. Yeah, that is all you need. The threat of this thing, and honestly, its incorporeality, contributes to that. It makes him more threatening somehow. The fact that he's not just something that you could, in theory, blow up or punch. How do you deal with this thing that has this degree of power, that has lured you into a trap and just wants to play? Does not think that there is anything you can do to stop him? Might well be right. He doesn't really care what happens to you. But whatever does, he'd like it to be fun. There's a lot of reasons to love the episode The Doctor's Wife, but he's a big one. Number 6, Mr. Finch. Leader of the Krillitanes and performed masterfully by Anthony Stewart Head. What I love about him is the sense of presence he brings. There are a lot of villains that ultimately don't really feel like that much of a threat to the Doctor. And sometimes that's logistical. Their plan doesn't seem like they're really on top of things, but a lot of it just comes down to presence. To have someone stand toe-to-toe, face-to-face with the Doctor, especially a Doctor as commanding as Tennant could be, even that early into his run, and have that person just talk, and come across like a genuine threat, a genuine match for the Doctor.
The next time we meet, you will join with me. I promise you.
That's huge. That is enormous. And Anthony Stewart Head has the presence to do that. When he faces down Tennant, it really does feel like these are two people who could legitimately take each other apart. And then the anger that he gets to just project later on in the episode, the severity in his face. It's so great. And I have given up hoping that he'll ever come back. I used to say there's no reason that you can't bring him back. Yes, like the Krillitanes were blown up, but it was already established that he was like a bit different from the rest of them. Like they all got splashed with that oil. All the rest of them were all like, ah! He was just standing there, so clearly it wasn't impacting him the same. He could have survived that explosion. He won't come back. But it would be so amazing if he did. Number 5, the Dream Lord. So many of these have such incredible performances at their center. Toby Jones, the wicked little goblin twisted mirror to Matt Smith's 11th Doctor, where Matt Smith is whimsical, playful. The Dream Lord is Machiavellian, sadistic. It's a perfect match off of each other. And again, like some of the other ones I've already mentioned, that smugness that he has, that really gives you a sense that, no, he's legitimately in control.
Ask me what happens if you die in reality.
What happens?
You die, stupid. That's why it's called reality.
Like exactly what he's capable of, what he's aiming for, we don't know, but he is in control of this moment. And he knows it. And he plays it like that. And how he'll just use all these cutting lines to take down the Doctor, pull apart his quirks.
If you had any more tawdry quirks, you could open up a tawdry quirk shop.
The banter, and just slam the entire process of a normal episode. All the things you do, Doctor, that normally get you through these things, they won't work with me. Oh, he's another one who I think there is a way to bring him back. I don't know if it would work the same, because you could make an argument that that specific iteration was very much meant to mirror off of Matt Smith's Doctor specifically. So if they try and reinvigorate the Dream Lord, I would think logically it would be a different iteration to go with a different regeneration. But like, I find a reason. He's so good. Number 4. The Beast. Another 2-parter, this one from Series 2, The Impossible Planet and the Satan Pit. And a villain who I actually am not sure if he ever should come back. But wow, was he incredible when he was there. While there is an incredible vocal performance at the center of this provided by Gabriel Wolf,
this one knows me as I know him.
You don't get that much direct presence of it. I mean, we see the Beast later on. It kind of possesses Toby. We hear this voice. But it's something about all those things brought together in the atmosphere of that story makes him truly seem impossible, unbeatable, deeply, deeply dangerous. And on paper, the idea of Doctor Who versus the Devil, that sounds kind of dumb, actually. But the execution of this is so good. And the Beast goes from moments of being in control to clearly just flatly toying with people.
I'm so close. Don't turn around.
And then he tells them their own secrets back to them.
Still running from Daddy. The little boy who lied. The virgin.
He knows what's going on. He knows how to mess with you. He's having fun. Oh, I love it. Number 3, The Empty Child. From Series 1, 2-parter, The Empty Child and the Doctor Dances. This thing freaks me out in the best way. Firstly, like, there's just something unsettling about the look, the design, its determination. But honestly, it's one of the few things where the more we find out about it, the scarier it gets, at least to me. Because when we find out that it doesn't just look like a child, it is a child. It is a child that is scared and just wants his mother. And to know what it's capable of If you've ever been a parent and know how chaotic and reckless small children are before they have a full understanding of the consequences of their actions or a fully developed moral compass, that much power in the hands of a child that can't and will never understand the actual consequences of what it is doing terrifies me. And it's just so masterfully executed. That thing creeps me out, and I freaking love it. Number 2, The Family of Blood, from the two-parters Human Nature and The Family of Blood. Everything about this, the performances from all 4, I mean, the main highlight being Son of Mine.
All your little tin soldiers. But tell me, sir, will they thank you?
But all of them are great. Just bringing that otherworldliness, that slight, that those slightly off. Just, okay. It's not just that you aren't talking quite like a normal person, like a human. There's something about your presence and the way you're even just looking at people. Something else is going on, and it feels dangerous. And the determination, the way they work together, just the off-kilter way in which they talk to each other, referring to each other strictly by what that individual's relationship to the one speaking is. So yes, there's sister of mine and mother of mine if son of mine is talking, but then if mother is talking, it's daughter of mine and son of mine. And the terminology, and it's just one more weird quirk that makes it a little bit more strange, a little bit more alien. And they are so focused, so determined, so single-minded in their pursuit of the Doctor, and the way that some of them turn on a dime into anger, going from calm, I'm in control, to shouting.
Shut up, stop talking, cease and desist, there's a good girl.
Mother of mine is dying to meet you.
And that can honestly go bad. It's very possible for that to go bad because when you try and have a character who's in control, they start to shout, it undermines that most of the time because people with real power don't shout. But because just the way these people talk is already off, it works here in a way that it usually doesn't when it twists and goes from calm to shouting to back. Oh, they're so engaging and they're so hypnotic to watch. But they're not going to take the top spot. Because for me, when it comes to one-time villains, there's only one that was ever going to be at the very, very top of this list. Number 1, the Midnight Entity, from the episode Midnight from Series 4. We don't know what it was. We don't know what it wanted. We don't know if it was trying to deliberately cause harm or if it was just an unfortunate side effect of just its own natural life cycle. We know almost nothing about the Midnight Entity. And I don't ever want that changed. It's perfect in its lack of information. We only know how it operates because of what we see. As it takes over Sky Silvestri, there's just this woman out and about on this vacation. Takes her over and then she starts repeating things that she hears until it starts syncing up and saying things at the exact same time.
Roast beef. Bananas. The Medusa Cascade. Bang!
And then it zeroes in on the Doctor and it starts talking ahead of him.
Do we have a deal?
Steals his voice. Puts the Doctor, that Doctor in particular, Tennant's Doctor, in a situation where one of his go-to things, one of the things that gets him out of trouble almost all the time, just talking. Talking his way out of things, talking his way into a plan, talking to stall for time. Talking makes it more powerful. This is quite possibly the ultimate foe for Tennant that he could not beat. He couldn't. He was saved when the stewardess sacrificed herself to kill this thing. The doctor couldn't beat it, didn't know what it was, didn't know how it did what it did, didn't know what it was trying to accomplish. And all of that just makes it all the better. I love everything about this episode and this entity, whatever it is. I don't ever want to know, because that uncertainty just makes it work better. What do you think were the best one-time appearing Doctor Who villains? If you want to give your shout-outs for some options for classic as well, feel free to do that, even though I didn't cover them in this list. Whatever your thoughts are, drop something down in the comments and let's talk about it. Patreon is what pays the bills and enables me to do this as my living. Any amount that you can donate to that is incredibly helpful. I'm going to have taxes coming up soon, but even if you can't, like, share, subscribe also help me out. There's links to other things that I have done or am doing down in the description if you want to check out any of those. Don't worry too much about it, though, because what I really want you to remember is that you are beautiful, you are valid, and you are loved. Hero or villain, you are the council. I'm just running the meetings. And until next time, this council is adjourned. And now my thanks to my highest supporters on Patreon. Robin Moore, Zubin Lafula, Tarak, The Thing That Goes Doink in the Anime, Oliver B., Melinda Walters, Emu Delkey, Leotha Boyd, Becky Sparks, Fernabulax, The Poodle, Tracy Scrabbit, Angry Casperl, Tim Price, Adam R.D.L. Taylor, Shayla Gourlay, and Rosalind Bennett. Thanks for your support. And if you want to get your name in the credits, check out the rewards on the Patreon.